Dear viewers, today I'm going to be talking about Nepal and its border disputes with India. Hello, and welcome to Global Nationalism. I support nationalism in my country, India, and in all countries around the globe. Today I'm going to be talking about nationalism in a South Asian country. That country is Nepal. In Nepal, there is a border dispute that it has with India, several border disputes, and I want to discuss them. These disputes go back to the colonial era when India was under British rule, where certain historic events happened which caused borders to be defined by British India and Nepal's kingdom. And Nepal disputes those borders now and claims that India is violating its sovereignty. I want to examine these claims in this video. Let's begin. Let's first describe the border itself. The border starts in the west at the western tri-point with China near the Lim, Limpu, Limbuyadhura. It then proceeds to the southwest through the Himalayas, the Siwalik Hills, and then the Gangetic Plain, initially overland and then utilizing the Mahakali River. Just east of Majhola, it turns to the southeast and proceeds in that direction overland, occasionally utilizing various rivers and hill crests. Northwest of Islampur, the border turns to the northeast and proceeds overland to the eastern Chinese tri-point. Now, here is the history. The border region has historically existed at the edge of various Indian and Nepali kingdoms. It took its modern shape during the period of British rule in India. As I said, the Anglo-Nepalese War of 1814-16 was ended with Nepal being defeated, and the Treaty of Sagoli was signed, in which it was forced to cede large areas of land to Britain, effectively creating the modern India-Nepal boundary. Finding the Terai region difficult to manage, the British returned parts of it to Nepal in 1816. India gained independence in 1947, and 3 years later, it signed a friendship treaty with Nepal, by which both countries agreed to respect the territorial integrity of the other. Since then, relations have been largely cordial, though a number of border disputes remain. There have been occasional blockades on the border at times of tension, for example, in 1987 and 2015. Communities living in India and Nepal close to the Indo Nepal border have usually shared old customary ties of kinship and resource access with communities across the border. What are the disputes? There are two main disputes. One is the dispute in the Kalapani territory, and the other is a dispute in the Susta territory. Here is the Kalapani dispute. Basically, the Kalapani dispute began when, uh, like I said, when the British took over some areas in Nepal in the 1816 war, and uh, basically the idea is that Kalapani territory is an area under Indian administration now, and it formed the Kali River in this territory is the boundary point between India and Nepal in this region. However, India states that the headwaters of the river are not included in the boundary. Here, the border runs along the watershed. This is a position dating back to British India, 1865. Nepal has another pass, the Tinkar Pass, close to the area. After India closed the Lake Pass in the aftermath of the 1962 Sino-Indian War, much of the Bhutia trade used to pass through Tinkar Pass. Nepalese protests regarding the Kalpani territory started in 1997, and India and China agreed to reopen the Lipu Lake Pass. And a joint technical committee of India and Nepalese officials have been discussing the issue since 1998, along with other border issues, but the matter has not yet been resolved. The Sakoli Treaty in Article 5 says the King of Nepal renounces for himself, his heirs, and successors all claims to and a connection with the countries lying to the west of the river Kali and engages never to have any concern with those countries or the inhabitants thereof. Not being satisfied with this, the Nepalese extended a claim to the Kuti Valley further west, stating that the Kuti Yangtze stream, the western branch of the headwaters, should be considered a main Kali river. And in the 20th century, when Nepal was in 1923, Nepal received recognition from British as a completely independent state. In 1947, India acquired independence, and in 1950, a treaty of peace and friendship was entered into between Nepal and India, where they agreed to respect each other's territorial integrity. And no changes in India's border with Nepal are discernible from the maps of the period. The Kalpani territory continued to be shown as part of India. Um, the 1954 trade agreement between India and China mentioned Lipu Lake as one of the passes that could be used by Indo-Tibetan trade and pilgrimage traffic. Nepal was not mentioned in the agreement. A state police post was established at Kalpan in 1956, which remained in place till 1979, when it was replaced by Indo-Tibetan Border Police. The China-Nepal Boundary Agreement, signed on 5th October 1961, states that the Chinese-Nepalese boundary line starts from the point from where the watershed between the Kali River and the Tinker River meet the watershed between the tributaries of the Mokchu River on the one hand and the Tinker River on the other. The tri-junction of India's and Nepal borders was at the melting point of the watersheds of Karnali, Kali, and Tinker rivers. The dispute was virtually ignored by Nepal and from 1961 to 1997. In September 1998, Nepal agreed with India that all border disputes, including Kalpani, will be resolved bilaterally. Nepal has laid claims to the areas east of the Lipu Gad Kalpani River, their contention being that the Lipu Gad was in fact the Kali River up to its source. They wanted the western border shifted 5.5 kilometers westward so as to include Lake Pass. Indian officials responded that the administrative records dating back to 1830 show that the Kalapani area had been administered as part of the Pittorgarh district. In May 2020, India inaugurated a new link road to the Kailas Mansarovar. Nepal objected to the exercise and said that it was violated of the prior understanding that boundary issues would be resolved through negotiation. I believe Nepal is right uh, in their view of this act by India. Since the boundary was disputed, India should not have built infrastructure there. So I agree with them. And the Susta territory is a disputed territory, and again between these two countries. It is administered by India as part of West Champaran district of Bihar. It is claimed by Nepal as part of Susta rural municipality. The disputed territory is located on the eastern side of the Gandak River. Nepal claims the area as part of West Navalparasi district. According to the Sogali Treaty, signed between the British and the Nepalese, the Gandak River is an international boundary, and the eastern part of the river belongs to India and western part belongs to Nepal. Over the years, the Gandak River changed its course and Susta moved to the east side of the river, that is on the Indian side of the river. Nepal maintains that Gandak's course in 1816 to be taken as the fixed international boundary, but India claims that land on the eastern side of the river is its own territory. Some understanding within their country about what they want from this border dispute because India and Nepal have had border disputes before, but 99% of them have been resolved. Not necessarily disputes, just some things that need to be clarified post independence. These are the only two disputes that still
De
exist.
facto occupation. Nepalese scholars
Nepalis are culturally similar to
and
Indians.
officials
They
also
share
emphasize cultural
religion,
and historical ties
food,
to the region.
uh,
Understanding Nepal's
culture with
stance
each other.
involves looking at
So they should
historical
try to
documents,
work together.
treaties, and the
Nepal should not be
perspectives of local
antagonistic to
inhabitants.
India
It's a complex issue,
and
but one that underscores
should work together with India to resolve this issue in a way that benefits both countries mutually without sacrificing its sovereign interests. Nepal should um, find a middle point. I think the Kalapani River, there is an argument that it should be measured from its source, not from the tributary it emerges into right now. But the fact remains that N- Nepal, before it became a democracy, did not oppose to India's control over the region, even though it wasn't determined by any official resolution of the dispute. And now, with a democracy, I think people in Nepal are being more demanding of their government to resolve this dispute, which is good. People should take care of their borders of the country. They should pressure their governments to protect their borders. But it must be mentioned that India is not a hostile nation to Nepal. It does not view Nepal as an enemy, and so Nepal should not try to create enmity between India. And they should find uh, fix the borders in a way that is probably in the middle between India's opinion and Nepal's opinion of where the border should be. This goes for the Susta River boundary and the Kalapani River boundary. And yeah, that's what I want to say. Please share your thoughts in the comment section. If you want to see other videos about South Asian countries, click here. If you want to see my previous video, click here. If you want to see the sources I use for this video, click the links in the description below. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.